Welcome everyone to We Are Endurance webinar series. I have the great pleasure of introducing you to Ahmed, who is the owner of PlayTri, and they are actually located throughout the country, and they also do online sales. And he's going to talk to us today about what to look for when buying either a road bike or a tri bike, and what questions to ask and how to go about that, like what it takes. And I am going to turn it over to you.
Thank you, Hillary. Thank you guys for having me. Buying a bike is really, I always say it's a huge investment, regardless of which bike you get. Even if you go with a beginner bike for $500, in general, it's still a lot of money compared to like running shoes or goggles or stuff like that. You want to try to take your time and pick up the right store. To pick up the right bike for you. I always describe it as kind of like shoes. When you go buy shoes and you get, let's say that you know that you're size 10, and the salesman bring you three size 10 shoes. There's one a little bit too wide, too big, one too small, and one just right, even though all three of them are size 10. It's really the same thing with bikes. It's size 52 or size 54 differs a little bit from one brand to another. The only problem with bikes, it's a huge investment. If you get the wrong shoes, you'll end up using it for walking or something like that. If you get the wrong bike, you'll end up getting injured, frustrated, and really we found a lot of people quit cycling or triathlon because of how uncomfortable they are on the bike. So when you start looking at a bike, one of the biggest mistakes I see people doing in general, whether it's athletes or salespeople, is they go by the height of the athlete, while really your inseam measurement is the more important of the two. So you want to get your height and inseam, but you really need to focus on your inseam more. And I teach that to my coaches and sales guys. Is the inseam is more important. And the inseam is really what dictates which size bike you want. And I have an example of my partner. He is a little shorter than me, but he rides a bike one size bigger than me, and he's a little shorter than me because his inseam is like, we always laugh, comes to my belly button. He's got one of these long inseams. So, again, if you go by the height, if we went by the height, I would be riding his bike and he would be riding my bike, and both of us would be on the wrong bike. But because we go with the inseam first, height second, height is still important, but that's kind of the thing that you need to always focus on when you're buying a new bike. Regardless of what the price is of the bike, the inseam is really what dictates the size first before the height. So that's number one. Number two is when you're buying a bike, you want to kind of figure out what your budget is and what your goals are. These are the two very important things. A lot of times people think, hey, I'm doing a triathlon. I have to have a triathlon bike. I always make fun of one of my friends. She got a triathlon bike and we'd be going riding and we're still in the parking lot and she goes right there in the aero bars, and she thinks, hey, I got a triathlon bike. I got aero bars. I have to be in it. Obviously, we know that's not true. You go in the aero bars when it's safe, number one, for you, and when it's beneficial for you. And there's a lot of cases that the aero bars is not as beneficial as they should be. But at the end of the day, really you have to figure out what your goals are. If you are doing one triathlon a year, I don't know if really triathlon bike is what for you. Maybe a road bike that has a triathlon bar, aero bars, maybe that's what is for you. But you got to check what your goals and what your what your budget is. Now, to kind of go through quickly the two differences between, road bike and a tri bike. If you think of a road bike, it's kind of, this is a road bike, and if this is the front, think of it as it's kind of laid back to the back more, where a triathlon bike angles are this way, where it forces you go on top of the bars. So a triathlon bike definitely will be more comfortable if you are in the aero bars, for sure, and if you're going a long distance, in general. So if you are capable of going in the aero bars comfortably and safely, and you're going to be there for a long time, definitely the triathlon bike is the bike for you. And that's why I usually recommend triathlon bikes if you are doing a 70.3 and Ironman, or my formula, and this is just me, there's no wrong in it, is if you do 3 races or more a year of triathlon, I think a triathlon bike will be beneficial because it'll make you more comfortable in training. It'll make you more comfortable in racing. It definitely will make you a lot faster. Triathlon bikes are a lot faster than road bikes. So that's kind of my formula. But if you're doing 1 or 2 races, then you're really probably better off getting a road bike with an aero bars on it. I think that will be a lot easier for you to you'll be able to go ride with the group more and be more social with a road bike definitely than a triathlon bike. So the first thing we talk about is like, what is your budget, in general. Now, if your budget, we have in the store, we have our road bike starts at $500. And we really kind of stop, I would say, about $1,600 and go to right over to the 23, 24, 25. The reason for that is under $1,500, you're probably going to be getting an aluminum bike, maybe aluminum bike with a carbon fork. It'll be a great bike, in general. And you'll be able to, it'll be fast, it'll be light, it'll be everything you want and more, except that you just really don't care as much on the speed. That will be the primary difference. And maybe the comfort won't be as comfortable as a carbon bike because a carbon bike will absorb the vibration better. So if you're on a budget and your budget is 2,000 or even 20, 223 and below, I would actually recommend the $1,500 and below bike, in general. And on our store, we give you 30 days to exchange the bike. Meaning exchange it for something similar or more, mainly because if you decided, hey, I want to go with the aluminum bike, and then you're like, oh man, I love cycling, I love triathlon, then within 30 days, obviously every time you go for a trade-in or anything like that, you tend to lose money. So we try to accommodate that for you to where you don't have to lose money when you do that exchange and get the better bike. But I recommend, if you're going with a road bike, you're going, 1,500 or less, 16, 1,700 if the bike, maybe on sale or something. But if you decided, hey, I want more, I recommend the jump to the 2,500. That is really getting a 2,000, 2,200 is kind of still an aluminum bike. It's a good bike, but why not pay a couple of bucks more and get a carbon bike? And the reason for the carbon bike is primarily, it's not the lightness. If you get a high-end aluminum bike, it's probably going to be lighter than a low-end carbon bike. But it's the vibration that it absorbs. The carbon absorbs, vibration of the ground, of the road more. So what happens is when you are riding the bike, your next day recovery will be a lot better because you're absorbing the vibration and the bumps and all that stuff better. But also, if you're running or doing a break or you're running in a race, your run will be a lot better because your body won't be beat. Which I'm going to highlight quickly on carbon wheels. That's again where carbon wheels come handy. When I sell carbon wheels, I don't sell them as the number one for speed. I actually sell them for 3 reasons. The number one is comfort, because it makes it absorbs the vibration even more. So a carbon bike added with the carbon wheels, both of them combined, obviously will absorb the vibration better than a carbon frame with a carbon wheels, with aluminum wheels. So when I sell the carbon wheels to a client, I like the way I present the pros and cons is the pros is number one is the bike will be more comfortable. Your run will be better. Your training the next day will be better. And that's the number one reason why I recommend carbon wheels. The number two is speed. Obviously, that's the two. And then I always say the number three, it makes the bike look better, in general. So that's like the third reason. But really, I sell carbon wheels. I have carbon wheels on my bike because of the comfort. Even if you don't race, I still recommend carbon wheels because obviously carbon wheels will make you ride longer, will make you ride more often. You're not going to be as beat. Your recovery will be better. And of course, again, as I said, if you run and all that, it'll be much better. So that's kind of really the difference between kind of an aluminum bike and a road bike, a budget bike, whether it's 500 to 1500, and then at 23, 24, 25, when you start kind of hitting the carbon bikes all the way to the top. The other mistake that I see a lot of people do is they come and they ask for a fast bike. Okay, that's what we all want to do. We all want to go a fast bike. And the fastest bike is the most comfortable bike. Always remember that. The fastest bike is not necessarily the most expensive bike. The fastest bike is not necessarily what the Tour de France guys or the Ironman Pro guys are riding and going fast with it. The fastest bike for you is the most comfortable bike. Because I see that all the time where people buy a triathlon bike, as I said, that maybe they have the fit a little bit more aggressive than they should, whether it's the fitter did that mistake or they did that mistake. And then I would be racing and I would be in my aero bars and they would be on their, bull horns, and they're not in the aero bars because their back hurts or their neck hurts and all that stuff. All that stuff, makes you slower. So at the end of the day, when you buy a bike, whether again it's a road bike or a triathlon bike, you need to pick the bike that is the most comfortable, not the fastest comfortable, fastest according to the sales guy or according to the manufacturer or according to, again, Google. The fastest bike, always remember, it is the most comfortable, bike. So that's kind of another thing, whether you're buying a road bike and a tri bike. And that's where the inseam comes handy, because if you measure the right bike with your height, you might end up with and if your inseam is very high, it's a long inseam, you'll end up with the seat really high. When the seat is really high, the bars are really low, and now you're in a very aggressive position. But if you measure and get the right bike with the inseam, you'll have a good, I always say, same as the seat, maybe a hair lower. That's really where most age groupers should be, in general. I can even argue that pros need to be in that position, but I'm not going to get there. We're talking mostly to beginners and age groupers and, weekend warriors. That's really where they need to be. Maybe a little above, that's not a problem either. I tell people you got to be safe and you got to be comfortable. So if your bars are a little above your seat, nothing is wrong with that in general, because you got to be comfortable and you got to be safe. And that's where, where comfort is where the power comes. So always remember, whether it's a road bike or a tri bike, if you're like that, you gotta be like, maybe if you're young, you're elite and, flexible, there's a lot of factors that comes into that, in general. But as I said, I can argue that even that is wrong because it closes your hip angle, and when you have a really narrow hip angle, any bike fitter or any athlete will tell you that's where the power comes. So you don't want to be crunching your hip angle. You want a hip angle to be kind of staying comfortable and in a good angle to where you can push the power that you want. So again, road bike, again, you got the aluminum, 15 and below. Carbon, they go to 2500 or so, up to like obviously 10, and above, and all that stuff. Most of the bikes now are integrated bars. Meaning, what is integrated bars? Integrated bars, when it comes to the carbon, meaning the cables and the brakes are hidden, in the stem and all that stuff. This integrated board is really cool and it makes the bike look really good, but it makes the flexibility for the fit and the flexibility for maintenance is a little bit less. But this is where the market is going. So if you have if there are bikes that are available now with cables, I can guarantee you within 2 to 5 years, all bikes will be integrated. With that said, what I will always recommend is make sure when you buy a bike, if you have the flexibility, obviously buy the best bike that fits you and feels good. But if you have the flexibility, have a flexibility of the stem being able to go to positive and negative, because a lot of the integrated bars are on just a negative. And that again allows very little flexibility when it comes to bike fitter. Or you might even say, well, the bike fits me great now, great. I always, when I sell a bike, especially if it's a carbon bike, but really even aluminum bike, I always say I sell a forever bike. So I'm selling the client what is the best bike that he's going to keep forever, knowing that we all are going to probably replace the bike at one point or another. not necessarily because we have to, but because we like biking and we want the newest model and all that stuff. But you want to also allow for if you don't want to change the bike. So if you buy a bike, make sure that it also has the flexibility of the stem being able to go positive or negative. And whether it's obviously all bikes that are not integrated, I would say most of them, 90% of them, you have the ability to do that. But integrated bars, you don't have as much the ability to do that. So that's another thing. One other point that you have to also put in mind is when you are buying a carbon bike, and if it comes with a carbon bars, not all carbon road bike bars, I'm talking about road bikes now, not all carbon road bike bars will allow an aero bar on it. So you might have to change it to an aluminum or a specific carbon bar that will allow that. So if your intentions is to put aero bars on it, make sure you put that into your research or into your budget of like that you have to replace the bars and all the stuff, so you can put the aero bars on it. If that's what you want to do, obviously you don't have to put aero bars on. When it comes to triathlon bikes, also make sure that a lot of the triathlon bikes, especially the new ones, or at least the ones that we sell, and that's why I love, Elegant 18, Cervelo, the bikes that we sell are really easy to fit. They're a good bike to me is a bike that I can fit the client on it no matter what their goals are. If they switch from a sprint to an Ironman, or if they lose weight, gain weight, switch to more goals of finishing, or switch to a goal of winning, whatever it is. The fit will make a little bit of a difference on that. And that's why I always recommend Cervelo and Aragon 18 and Felt, because they're really easy to fit, very flexible. But if you're buying other brands, and not saying that other brands are bad, make sure that you check into that. One of the famous brands that sells direct, have almost zero flexibility in the bike fit. We get so many of them that come and trade in their bikes after they buy it because their back hurts, their neck hurts, they can never get comfortable on it. And a big part of it is they don't have a lot of flexibility in the fit. It's a good bike. There's no bikes out there that I can say they're bad bikes. Maybe it's a bad bike for you if it doesn't fit you right, or if the bike doesn't have the flexibility to make sure that you're comfortable on it. So when you buy also a triathlon bike, similar to a road bike, but it's a little bit more complicated, is make sure that you have the ability to add spacers or raise it up, bring it down, move it wide, move it narrow. There's a lot of companies that obviously sells supplement extensions, aerobar extensions and bars. But again, that adds on the price. If you do your research before, you can get the right bike without adding another $500 or $1,000 to make it right. So one of the things that we do, and there are unfortunately not a lot of bike shops that specialize in triathlon bikes. Some of them think they do, but really, and I always tell people, until you get wet before you get on the bike, and then go get sweaty on the run after the bike ride, you really still kind of don't understand how we feel, and how the fit and all that stuff is important to us. So try as much as you can that you would do your research. Obviously, we're here for you. If you for any resource, you don't have to buy the bike from us. We all, our number one goal is to make sure you're on the right bike. And yes, we'd love to earn your business, but feel free, store@playtri.com. You can email us with any questions you have, and we'll answer your questions. We'll FaceTime you. We'll get more information from you and try to get you on the right bike, even if it's from another store or another brand. We've done that for the last 24 years, and we'll continue to do that as long as we're in business. Getting on the right bike is the best, but do your research on that. Use us, but do your research on that. As the sales guy, is that bike easy to fit? Can I bring it out in, make it wider, make it down, up, stuff like that. So that's also very important. When it comes to what we talked about, carbon wheels. So carbon wheels, as I said, I would recommend them regardless of, even on an aluminum bike. And I've sold carbon wheels on aluminum bikes. in general, I would recommend carbon wheels for the reasons we talked about. Comfort is the main thing. There's a lot of supplements that comes. I always tell people, one of the things that is good about cycling is you can buy speed. You can actually buy speed. On swimming, you can't buy speed. You gotta do the training. On running, there is nothing you can do. I don't care if you buy the lightest shoes or whatever. Nothing will make a difference. In biking, you can buy speed. Definitely, money makes a difference. If there's anything you're going to spend money on in the three sports, out of the three sports, I would say biking would be the one that you can easily buy speed. So we talked about carbon, carbon frames. They absorb the vibration more, which one of the main reasons that they are, in my opinion, faster. They make the ride more comfortable. Carbon wheels is another reason why again, comfort translates into speed. I would say the other, two, there's a lot of them, but I would say the most two popular that we sell are, power meters and ceramic speed. If you have a coach, and if your coach, analyze power meters, there are a lot of coaches that, don't believe in power meter, and, I don't judge, but, to each its own. I think it's a powerful tool. I definitely would recommend power meter first. But if you don't have a coach and you're not a kind of a data guy and don't want to deal with that, I would say ceramic speed is the one that would give you, it would give you speed without having to do anything. You bring the bike to your shop, they'll put on some ceramic speed bearings, oversized pulleys, whatever chain, and that will definitely make a huge difference. On average, it does anywhere between, it saves between, 5 watts to 5 to 10 watts on average. Some people are more, some people are less. Actually, the less efficient you are, is the better you are, but the more you get out of it. The more efficient you are, obviously, just like in everything, you're already maximizing, so you don't get as much out of it. So that would be the two things that I would recommend over on and above, the carbon frame and the carbon wheels. When it comes to electronic shifting, that's another thing that is very popular. Electronic shifting, I'm a car guy, so I try to describe it as electronic shifting is kind of, for the older people like me, they drove manual. Most of, my kids don't even know what manual shifting is, but, it's kind of the difference between manual and automatic. If you know how to drive manual, you really don't know that, it's kind of a convenience thing. It's nothing more. I wouldn't say that it makes the bike faster. There's a lot of research that shows that it's like 0.01 second faster. I don't think that makes a difference to, me and you. But I recommend it for triathlon bikes. And the reason I recommend it for triathlon bikes, not for speed, but for safety. When you on a road bike, it's optional, because your hands are, over here, you're shifting, you're braking, there's no big deal. Manual or electronic shifting won't make a difference, that big of a difference in general. But in electronic shifting, you are, you're here or you're here. And being able to shift when you're down here or when you're here it makes the ride a lot safer. We put on events in Dallas, triathlon races. Actually, we have our first race of the season is this weekend, Luck of the Irish sprint. And we also are the official triathlon store of Ironman and the official triathlon store of USAT. So when you go to the Ironman races, you'll see us at the expo. We have a full store over there. We fix your bikes. We sell you, what CO2 that you forgot or whatever, stuff that you need. And then also when you're on the course, our staff and team are the ones on the motorcycles helping you if you have a problem on the bike or God forbid you crash, and making communication with the Ironman staff to take care of you and all that stuff. So we see we see a lot. I don't want to say we see everything, but we see more than the average bike shop or the average coach. And I can tell you, maybe 99% of triathlon bike crashes happens when you are holding the bike with one hand and the other hand is doing something else. maybe shifting, maybe picking up water, maybe, grabbing water from the back, maybe you're signaling, hey, I want to, go to the right, go to the left. So the more that you are able to keep both hands on the bike, whether you're on the bullhorn or whether you're on the aero bars, you will prevent 99% of triathlon bike crashes, whether it's at the race or in on your regular riding, in general. So always remember that triathlon bikes are a little tricky because we talked about how they kind of put you on top of the bars, to make you comfortable on the bars and make you faster and make you more aero. But they are made to go fast in a straight line. So always remember that they're not really made to go up the hills. They're not made for corners and all that stuff. So the bike is very stable when it comes to going in a straight line on a flat, not even on hills, on a flat. Anytime you want to go on the corners and or going up hills, obviously the road bike is much more stable in that case. And it's the opposite. Road bikes are not as stable on the flat. Does that make sense? So you have to kind of recognize what the weaknesses are of each bike in general. So that's kind of one of the things. Make sure you're holding the bike. And if on a triathlon bike, I strongly recommend getting electronic shifting. You can get electronic shifting now for $1,000, $1,200. They're getting a lot less. There's a lot of good deals on it. In general, the prices are going down for electronic, just like in anything electronic. The prices always go down. So consider it in the tri bike. It's optional on the road bike. Does that make sense? And what else? I think that's kind of more, be careful with the expensive bikes. A lot of times, as I said, expensive bikes are a lot of times stiff and not comfortable. So be careful with expensive bikes, regardless of what brand they are. The more expensive the bike is, it's sometimes not as comfortable. So if you have the money, good for you. Just be conscious of that. Get the right bike for the best money. You can make and a bike expensive always. As I said, you can add the ceramic speed, you can add the power meter, you can add the carbon. So if you want to spend the money, I will say, we'll take your money, we'll make the bike fast, but make sure you're getting the right frame. A lot of the expensive frames are really uncomfortable, and we want to make sure you get the most out of your bike. But most importantly, we want to make sure you continue to ride. If I had a penny for every time somebody came to me and said, I'm quitting triathlon because I'm not comfortable on the bike, and an hour later, he is on, either I fit him on the bike or I got him the right bike, and and he's like, still riding, and 10, 20 years later, mainly because of the bike, it was so uncomfortable. His neck hurt. If your neck is hurting, that's not normal. If your back is hurting, that's not normal. Because I've heard that from some bike shops, that clients would come to us and they would say, well, my bike shop said that it's normal for my neck to hurt. It's normal for my shoulder to hurt. It's normal for my back to hurt. It's normal for my butt to hurt. Now, after 50, if you're riding 50, 100 miles, everything hurts. So that is sometimes people go, man, I had a guy that was like, my seat, I want to change my seat. I changed the seat several times for him. I tested everything looks good. I even went and rode with him. I was like, everything looked great. He's like, he goes, I know, but after mile 80, my butt hurts. I was like, man, after mile 80, everybody's butt hurts. I was like, if I sat on the couch for 3, 4, 5 hours, my butt is gonna hurt. So it's all relevant. But if you're hurting very quickly, or there is no improvement in the shoulders and the neck and the back and the butt, you probably need either the right, a better bike, or a better sizing bike, or a better fit, or a better saddle, or some adjustments. That is not normal. I think that's kind of a quick, a quick one.
Yeah, I have a couple of
Yeah.
questions. So how do you go about measuring your inseam? Can you do that yourself, or do you have to go to a bike store to do that?
Very good. So we have actually a video that I can send you that we made, that you can do it yourself. The two main things is you don't have, make sure that you don't have, shoes on, so you're barefooted, or socks. And then the second thing is, you kind of can put a book or something and make sure it's like leveled, or a level, and then measure. It's a lot easier if you get two people to do it, like another friend of yours do it. You can do it on your, by yourself. But we have a video that I can send you, and you can kind of put it on your website. But yes, you can do it yourself. You can have your spouse or your significant others, or a friend do it for, help you do it, mainly to get it more accurate. And that's how we sell bikes all over the world, really. We ship to Hong Kong, we ship Australia, we ship to Europe. Obviously, we ship all over within the United States. And we have a formula for, like, just over the last 24 years that we did of the height and seam to pick the right bike, for you. And I would say we have, with our formula and kind of with asking some questions on the goals, we've never had anybody that we shipped them a bike that said that it wasn't perfect for them. Knock on wood. And I don't talk to everybody, but in general, but I don't remember that we ever had. So knowing, again, what the right and seam, and we're here to help you with that. Like, you don't have to buy from us. Again, as I said, we would love to earn your business, but we want you on the bike first. More importantly, always shop local. If your local store doesn't have the bike, then come to us. But we promote shopping local always. Even if you buy the bike to us, we recommend you we ship it to the bike shop, or take it to the bike shop, let them put it together, get the local bike shops business, keep them in business. It's a tough business, and you need your local bike shop, to be honest with you, to fix your bikes and make you continue safely and biking. So I can send you that, Hillary.
Terrific, thank you. And another question I have is, you were talking about the arrow bars on the road bike. Now,
Yeah.
I mean, I can't tell you how many times I actually had them on my first road bike.
Yeah.
And I still have my arrow bars, but I never put them on my new road bike.
Yeah.
And my bike store said, don't ever do that. Like, that's a bad thing. So can you tell us why somebody would do that?
Yeah, so I actually have, I have multiple bikes, as I said, in general. So I have, when I go ride with a group, I usually take my bike that doesn't have the aero bars, but it's usually a cycling group. Does that make sense? So what happened is, the reason the bike shop says don't put the aero bars on there is because they're scared that you go ride with a cycling group, and they're scared you are going to go on the aero bars. And that's really a big no-no. You should never do that. You really should never do that with any group, triathlon, beginner, or cycling. So when the store tells you that, they're telling you that from a safety point. But I've went riding by myself on my road bike that has the aero bars, and I can't got tangled with a group of riders. We have a route over here that everybody rides, and I always say, you start by yourself, you end up with 40 people. And I ride it, but I am also conscious that when I'm riding with the group, if I have the aero bars on it, I don't get in the aero bars. Does that make sense? Because I know the aero bars makes all cyclists nervous. I know it makes me nervous if I'm riding with you and you're on the aero bars, or you have a triathlon bike. So when the bike shop says don't do that, they do it for safety reasons. With that said, I strongly recommend having an aero bars on your road bike. I really do. I think there's a lot of benefits for having a road bike, an aero bars on the road bike. Number one, it provides you with another comfort, because now you have 3 spots. Maybe you have here, and then you have here. So it provides you with another spot that you can ride in general. Number two is, if you're going to translate into a triathlon bike, then you're translating the muscles more into triathlon bike when you're on the aero bars. Does that make sense? But I'll tell you why I actually put aero bars on my road bike, which was kind of a funny story. I go ride in Austin. There used to be, they don't have it anymore. They used to have, it was a great camp. They called it Hell Week. And basically Hell Week, they had, it was an organized riding, and it was anywhere between 20 miles to 120 miles every day. And it's, maps and support and all that stuff. And I usually used to go ride anywhere from the 50 to 100, and it's 7 days, and usually take a day off in the middle, or you can ride every day. You can do whatever you want. So I was riding one time, that was early. That was like about, I want to say like 20 years ago. And I was riding my road bike, and a girl was riding with us in the group, and she had the aero bars on. So of course, I assumed right away that she's a triathlete, right? I mean, why would you have aero bars on there? So I'm chit-chatting with her, you know, and we're riding, and it's a long ride, 100 miles, and we're chit-chatting, and, you know, and I'm like, well, what races you're doing this year? So she's like, oh, I'm doing race across America. I'm doing, you know, she was doing the race across America, you know, on the road bike. She was doing all, and it was all cycling races. And I was like, oh, that's really cool. And I was like, oh, so you don't have any triathlon races, you know, this year? She's like, I don't know how to swim. I don't do triathlon. And I was like, well, that's really weird. Why do you have the, you know, the aero bars? And then she's the one that actually told me I have the aero bars because it's more comfortable. Everything I'm telling you right now, she's the one that told me, you know. So of course, you know, as soon as I went home, I put the aero bars, and she was right on everything. It was more comfortable with the aero bars. The translation into triathlon, that's something I experienced, you know, in general. But cyclists that do across America, from what I learned from her, they put the aero bars for, again, comfort, for comfort translate into speed, translate into longevity, because they usually ride across America, you know, every day, you know, from whatever it is that, you know, she basically was an endurance cycling athlete in general. So that's where I recommend the aero bars. With that said, be very conscious not to be in the aero bars if you're riding with anybody. You know, if you get tangled in a group, that's something that you have. Or you can ride with the group. A lot of times I ride with the group, and I want to be, if I want to get on the aero bars, then I do it the triathlon raceway, which is like 3 to 4 to 5 to 6, you know, spaces. So I'm way in the back, you know, riding behind them. But that's, you know, so that's my 2 cents on the aero bars.
Quick question, and I'm going to open it up to everybody.
Yeah.
So another thing that you mentioned was that, you know, when you're riding hills, you're better off riding a road bike as opposed to a tri bike. What about with a 70.3? Would you also recommend doing a road bike?
Yeah, so yes, but the definition of hills is different. Does that make sense? So the definition of hills between one person to another. So if you're familiar with European, races like Ironman Nice or Ironman Lanzarote, and all these like really hilly races. I was coaching an athlete in France, and I went over there to watch her doing Ironman Nice, and all that you can point the Americans, out because they had triathlon bikes. nobody had triathlon bikes except for the Americans, in general, because we don't know, I'm not saying it's our fault, or my fault as a coach educating my athletes, on what they need. My athlete did have a road bike, obviously. I kind of knew, but that's the thing, is like, any of these races, you got to take your road bike. And we tell that to our athletes if they're racing in Europe or, racing. Now, let's talk about, like, what is a hilly course, okay? Because hilly course is different. I live in Texas. It's flat. You put a bridge over there, and I'm like, oh, my God, it was a hilly course. So, you know what I mean? So hilly courses are, really relative to what it is. But at the end of the day, the concept is the same. So San George, I think, is one of the races here in the United States that's kind of a little hilly, I would say, relatively speaking, in general. But here is what I tell people, regardless, because I don't know what your abilities are. If you are riding the hills, or if you're spending a lot of time up in the hills, or even down the hills, because remember, up and then down. If you're on the bullhorn a lot, you're probably better off with a road bike and an aero bar. If you're able to roll on the hills when you're on the aero bars, then a triathlon bike will be fine. So regardless of what race you're gonna do, you have to calculate how long am I gonna be on the hills, up and down. Because on the downhill, we know at least I can't be in the aero bars going down the hill, in general, not fast at least. So you have to calculate that and then decide which one is better. You're better off. So if you're a really beginner, or if you live in Texas like me, probably a lot of the courses are hilly, and probably road bike would be better off. But if you're in Colorado or, a lot of Utah or a lot of these places that have, a lot of hills, even if you're a beginner, hills might be like a second nature to you. But the key is, how long are you going to be in the aero bars? Because every time you're out of the aero bars, you think about it like this: every time you're out of the aero bars, you're better off with a road bike. If you remember the Tour de France this year, if you watch the Tour de France, there was a time trial that they switched from road to tri bike. One of the time trials, the athletes, obviously they can do that, we can, but they switch. When it came to hills, the guy gave them a road bike. When it comes to the flat, they give them a tri bike. We can't do that, obviously, so we have to calculate how long are we going to be on the road bike, and the aero bars, and how long. So it's very relative. If you're a strong cyclist and you're good on the hills, you probably still continue on the tri bike. Does that make sense? So I don't want to give a specific, because everybody's ability is a little different.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. Does anybody have any questions?
Yeah. So when you're looking for a bike, and let's say you're considering whether going for a new, you're working on a budget and you're thinking of going new, or you're possibly looking for a used bike, because you might be able to get more for less. And obviously we're talking lots of variables here.
Yes.
In general, is there, say, like a number of years on a bike where you would say, okay, I wouldn't consider anything past, say, 5 or 10 years old, because bikes have advanced so much, or there's the possibility of so much wear on the bike?
Great question. Yeah, great question. We get that all the time. So here is kind of to give you the pros and cons, all right, and of everything in general. So number one, let's talk about what used bike compared to new bike. Used bikes never have any warranty. New bikes always have full warranty. So the reason for that is manufacturer only provides used bike warranty to the first owner. When you buy a used bike from us, we give you a 30-day, as I said, 30-day to exchange the bike, 30-day to, whatever. That's not a warranty. This is just a convenience thing, making sure that you got the right bike, you don't want to upgrade, blah, blah, blah. So always consider that. That's number one. Number two is, when we talk about how many years, right? Let's talk about Shimano or SRAM. So Shimano or SRAM, every 4 years, they come up with a new, if you're familiar, let's talk Shimano. If you're familiar with Shimano, they have, 105, Ultegra, Durace, right? Okay. So every 4 years, they don't come up with a new Shimano 105, a new Ultegra, and a new Durace. They don't. People think they do, but they don't. Every blue moon, like when they switch from 10 speed to 11 speed, yes, they did that. But I'm talking about in general, they don't do that. What they usually do is they come up with a new Durace. And then the old Durace becomes Ultegra, and the old Ultegra becomes 105, and the old 105 becomes the rival, and so on and so on and so on. So when I get somebody with a bike, and that maybe are trading it in, and they go, hey, this bike has Durace, and it's 12 speed. 12 years, 12 years, and it has Durace. I can't believe you're giving me only blah, 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 X amount for it. I'm like, buddy, come over here. You have rival on your bike. And I show him the new rival that we have that's on the floor. And I say, look, it's exactly the same. It just says rival instead of Durace. Exactly the same derailleur, exactly the same everything. Does that make sense? So always be conscious that when you're buying an Ultegra used bike that is 4 years old, you're really buying a new 105. Okay, so that's very important that because a lot of times people go, I'm buying a Durace bike. No, you're buying a rival bike. So that without a warranty also. That's another thing. So that's number two. The third thing is, if you buy bike like, from a pro, which a lot of them, they get a sponsored bike, maybe they get a free bike, and they usually sell it for pennies to the dollars. I would not get that bike for free from a pro myself. These guys ride these bikes so hard. I mean, they should, and they do, they got the power. They don't take care of their bikes as much. I'm not going to generalize, but even if they take care of their bikes, they ride them hard. A 1 year pro bike is equivalent to 10 years of my or your bike. So you're better off buying from me or you a 10-year-old bike. It probably will be, other than the technology or whatever it is, it will be probably be ridden and taken care of better than and that. So in my opinion, I really strongly don't recommend used bikes. If you buy a used bike, it would be from a friend that you know exactly what the history of the bike is, you know how they ride it, you know this and that. And that's where you take that risk. You still take that risk of the warranty. Now, with that said, we've had so many problems where a friend sells a bike to a friend, and they come over here to do a tune-up at the store, and the frame is cracked. And the original guy didn't know, it just happened, and now it's a problem, and now they're fighting, and and it's a problem. So I don't recommend. I recommend trade in the bike. We've traded in bikes, and we usually give it a value, and we go through it 100%. And after we go to, because we always take all our trade-in bikes and take them apart, and we see a crack that we didn't see it. A hairline crack is very hard to see. So it's almost it's that I always say go with the best frame. I would rather have you go with a frame like, let's say, Cervelo or Aragon 18. You can get a good frame with 105 components for $3,000, in general, and that would be a much better choice to me than getting an electronic shifting, 4 or 3 or 2 even years old, in my opinion. And then over the years, you can upgrade the bike. So one of the good things about bikes as well is a year, 2 years from now, you can add the electronic shifting, and now you have an electronic shifting bike. You can add the carbon wheels. So that's what I recommend myself. I've seen a lot of nightmares in the used market, and I also saw a lot of people that are, like I said, they're like, oh, I got a Durace bike. No, you don't. You got a Rival. You got a 105. You got a whatever, the bottom line, because it's 10 or 12 years old or 8 years old and so on. Does that make sense? And again, we can help you with that. Like, again, we answer questions to people all the time in general, but I strongly recommend going to a new bike. You get the full warranty on it. You have a peace of mind, and then upgrade slowly, in general. That's just my 2 cents on.
Okay, thanks.
Even.
So you were saying that you were talking about the cracked frame, right? So
Yeah.
what happened with my bike was that there was a little crack underneath the seat, right?
Yeah.
So I sent it back to the company. They fixed it. But is it really ever fixed?
Yeah, so no, I'm not gonna lie. There's a lot of carbon bikes that carbon people that fix it, and they'll tell you it's exactly the same. It's never the same. It's just like if you get a car, if you fix the fender, it's never the same. Now, if you replace the fender, you might, but in carbon bikes, you can't replace the fender. That you have to go to the manufacturer, and obviously it's not. So my opinion, it's never the same. And this is the part where a lot of the times, if you're on a budget, obviously fix it. If you don't have a choice, it's better off. Maybe fix it and then sell it to somebody that, is on a budget, and obviously be honest about it. It's still a good bike. It's better than, no bike. But what happened is with carbon, if you understand how carbon works, very few carbon frames are like a one piece, like molded. They're usually pieces and glued together. Does that make sense? So there is glue that's holding the carbon pieces together. Okay. Now, carbon is, unfortunately, if you're a green guy, carbon is the worst thing for the environment. A million years from now, steel will be gone, aluminum will be gone, everything will disintegrate, carbon will stay the same. So the stiffness of carbon is great. And this is why it's really, comfortable, and it's really lasts forever. The problem with it, the glue is not forever. So one of the things that I don't recommend is also riding your carbon bike on the trainer, because all you're doing, that vibration is just pushing on the glue of the carbon. You know what I mean? In general, a lot of manufacturers actually now don't even give you warranty if you ride don't honor the warranty if you ride it on the trainer in general. But it kind of, kind of gives in the stresses on the glue. So while the carbon, nothing will ever happen to it, the glue that holds, or it's not welding obviously, but you can call it glue weld or whatever it is. That's the part that is kind of, so when they fix it, they're still gluing pieces together. or if you're riding the bike on a trainer, or to answer, his question of the 10-year-old bike or a pro bike, guy that when I say they ride it hard, they can never ride the carbon part hard, but they ride the glue part hard. So what happens when you ride the glue part hard? Well, number one, obviously you can have a crack frame happening quicker than the normal. But number two is you lose the power transfer from your pedal to the carbon to the ground, because now you have a little bit of vibration in there, a little bit of flexibility in there. Is that so that's why, again, I go with a new bike is faster than a used bike because of that part of the glue. Does that make sense?
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Craig, Ann, do you have any questions before we wrap up?
No, this has been really insightful. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And please, like I said, there's a lot more. I mean, obviously I'm trying to give you guys what we go through when somebody walks into the door. Like we basically, what I just told you is when somebody walks into the door to buy a bike, we just run through this very quickly. Like here's this, here's that, pros, cons. We don't tell you which one to buy. We just tell you pros and cons and try to kind of guide you on what the right bike is. And we're happy to do that with you online or, on the phone. And again, you don't have to buy the bike from us. Buy local. We love to earn your business in so many different ways. And if your local bike shop doesn't have the bike, then obviously we're happy to ship it to you. But use us, to get the right bike the first time, because it'll make a huge difference on your training and your sustainability of your health.
What's the tax in Texas?
The tax? Well, you mean sales tax? Yeah, so if you are out of Texas, you depending on your state, you don't pay tax. And most of our bikes are free shipping. So, most of the people get free shipping and, they just pay for the bike, in general. So most of them, we have a store in Florida, so we have to charge tax. We have, we have 4 or 5 states that you have to start charge tax, but, 46 other states, you don't have to, pay for tax. But sometimes I think Washington is the only one that you have to pay tax regardless. Again, it's just different laws. But for the most part, most of our bikes, unless they're on a deep discount and sale, we charge $95 for shipping. But most of them are free shipping. And if you live in the state outside of where we have a store, then it's no sales tax as well.
I have one question.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry I joined late.
Yeah.
So I have a rim Cannondale that I really, really love.
Yeah.
I love the bike. Okay.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things that, I've taken it to live in Long Island like the rest of the team. And everyone's like, Craig, you need to upgrade to a disc bike. And I'm like, but I really love this rim bike.
Yeah.
And I'm torn. And what advice would you give? Because I want to upgrade the bike. I've had it now for about 6 years.
Yeah.
But a lot of bike shops are telling me they don't even have the parts to upgrade it.
Yeah, so the bike shop and the manufacturers are kill me. Do not upgrade. If they listen to this, they'll send me, that they'll threaten me. I love rim. I still have a rim bike as well. I haven't converted yet. My triathlon bike is still rim. My road bike's triathlon rim. My road bike trim. The only bikes that I have disc are my gravel bike, which I strongly recommend for sure, and mountain bikes. I strongly recommend this. I'm going to tell you what the pros and cons are. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And I'll be as honest as I can be, because disc is better for me as a bike shop owner. It's better for the manufacturer. It's more maintenance. You'll have to come to me more often. It's harder to work on yourself. We buy a lot of different tools that are very expensive that would not make any sense to you in general. But disc is better when it comes to braking. It's rain or shine, you have the same brakes. Obviously, on the downhill, you have the same brakes. Now, if you live in Texas, we don't drive. What I always tell people, we don't drive when it rains. So we definitely don't bike when it rains. So I don't care about that part. Does that make sense? I see rain, I stay home. That's it. You know what I mean? So I tell people, like, if you if brakes is a really something for you that's very important, and maybe the rim brakes doesn't provide what you want, which to some people it is. Does that make sense? Then I would recommend the rim. I actually recommend rim over disc when it comes to that. Now, the other part people buy disc brakes is disc brakes allow you to put a wider tire.
Right.
Now, the wider tire provides more comfort, right? We talked about, so it adds another value if
Yes.
to where, hey, if you are on the right bike, which I would say 50% of people I know are not on the right bike, so getting the right bike would probably make it more comfortable. Getting carbon wheels would make it more comfortable. That's second. And if you have the right bike and you have the carbon wheels, then the disc, and you're still not comfortable, you know what I mean? Then you can add the disc, and that will make a wider tire that will provide more comfort.
Got
But in my experience, that is very seldom that you really have to go to that. That's two things that why you would buy this. The third reason is, yes, the industry is going towards this because that's just how it is. I can't control it. You can't control it. I tell you, we made one of, Penarella, one of our brands that we love. They literally did they did a rim brake bike for us, a whole container, and mainly because I was like, I love rim. My clients love rim. We need to have rim, and they made us a whole container last year that generally we bought and got, and we still have rim brakes and nice bikes and all that stuff. Now, to answer your question on the parts and all that stuff, I disagree with your local bike shops. Rim brake will continue to be there. It's just not going to be on expensive bikes. Does that make sense? So rim brakes will stay there for at least another, I don't know, 10, 20, 30 years. You're just not going to be able to get a nicer carbon bike on a rim. So I don't agree with the fact that you're not going to find parts for it, because it's still going to come on aluminum bikes. And we have obviously tons of aluminum bikes, and there's still all manufacturers that deal with lower end aluminum bikes, 2000 and below, they have both options. They have the disc and the rim. But I know people don't agree with me, and if you ask 10 people about that, and some people even in our shop, some people no, disc is better, much better, and I respect everybody's opinion. I'm just telling you, the rim is a lot less maintenance. It's actually a lighter bike, in general. So if brakes is not a big deal for you, or you're happy with your rim, my brakes work fine on my rim bike, so I don't have a problem. And if you're comfortable on it, which I'm very comfortable on my rim bike, you don't have to really push the disc. Does that make sense? Or make that investment?
Okay. Now I'm curious again. I joined late, so I do apologize.
No.
If I'm interested in having a discussion with you offline about upgrading my Cannondale in terms of better wheels, better systems, could we talk? Because I live in Long Island, like all the team.
Yes.
Could we talk about that?
Yeah. So email anytime you have any questions. Email store@playtri.com. Store@playtri.com, and that email goes to it comes to me, it comes to my manager, it comes to a couple of the sales guy, and you just can, if you can request to talk to a sales guy, and they'll be good. But in that case, I would love to take care of you guys myself. Just say, hey, Ahmed, can you please call me? And I'll call you. Leave your phone number there, and I'll call you, or I'll communicate with you. And then I'll have my personal email after that, so it won't be, you won't bother anybody. It won't be in the way. Does that make sense?
Okay.
For other people?
Yes.
So when you store@playtri.com, just say, hey, I'd like to talk to Ahmed, or just kind of talk to me. Ahmed, I want to talk to you. Here's my phone number. Call me. And like I said, you don't have to buy anything from us. Our number one goal for 24 years now, our goal was to put you in the right situation to continue swimming, bike, running. I've said that many times. I always think of ourselves as a health company, or a health coach company, or a health bike shop, not necessarily a bike shop, because really our goal is to keep you healthy, in general. And for 24 years, that's really number one goal. Now, do we want to earn your business? Yes, of course. But if there's a better bike out there, we want you to have it. One of the reasons I'm going to highlight on something we did in PlayTri. So if you go to PlayTri website, PlayTriStore.com, you're gonna find the most brands in the world of any bike shop. If you go to any bike shop, you're gonna maybe find 4 brands, 5 brands, and that is it. Most of the time, they even have really 1 brand or 2 brands, and that is it. Does that make sense? They might have a supplement or a little bit, right? You're gonna find that, right? You go onto PlayTri, you look at our store, you see the picture behind there. We have about 15 different brands. 15 different brands. Does that make sense?
Yes.
An average big shop has 2 major brands and maybe 3 supplement brands. And the supplement brands are like 1 or 2 bikes. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, you're absolutely right.
Do you know why? Now, business-wise, they are right and we are wrong. Business-wise. Why? If I buy 1,000 bikes from one brand, I get a better price, right? It's fair. If I buy 100 bikes, I don't get as better. We decided to go a different route. And the only reason we decided to go a different route is for you. Is because when we carried 1 or 2 brands, and you walked into the door and asking us for the right bike in general, we didn't have the right bike for you. So we ended up sending you to another bike shop, which we don't want to do, but we did because it's the right bike for you. We didn't carry the right bike. So what we did is we started adding more brands and adding more brands and adding more brands. And now I'm not saying that every blue moon somebody will walk in and really we don't have the bike for them. That happens like every blue moon. But most of the time we have. So we decided to go with less margins, less profit, but always have the right bike for you. So when you go to our store, I always tell people, don't get stuck on the brand. That's one of the biggest mistakes cyclists do, is they get stuck. I want to buy this brand, a Cervelo. I want to buy an Aragon 18. I want to buy a Felt. Do not do that. Keep an open mind and get the right bike. The second time is people are stuck on the color. I don't blame them. I like colors too, but a comfortable bike, the color will look good. An uncomfortable bike, you'll hate, and the color will look bad. So be flexible, be an open-minded on what it is. But we decided to go a different route of carrying more brands than anybody in the world, so that when you walk into the door, we have a bike that will fit you 100%, not 90%, not 99 even percent. Does that make sense? And you'll see that now that I told you that. You'll see that. Walk into other bike shop, you'll get 1 or 2 brands, all in there, and then various supplement of other ones. Well, you can't tell me that all of us fit one brand. That's impossible. It's impossible that we all can fit one model or one brand. Or so more brands. When you go into a bike shop, make sure they have a complement of different models, different bikes, so that you are guaranteed to get the right bike, not get the bike just because they carry that brand.
Thank you so much, Ahmed. I'm going to send around your email to everybody. I know that there were women on the all women's tri team. They said that they were going to come, but they didn't join us. But they were looking for bikes.
Yes.
So I will send them to you.
Please.
And thank you very much.
My pleasure, you guys. Anytime, just like I said, email me or call me. All right.
Terrific. Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Take care. Take care. Bye-bye.